Tolkien, or as I like to call it, Hobbity. Directed by Thomas Dome Karakowski, whose previous film was Tom of Finland, which is a biopic of the homoerotic artist, which is actually pretty decent. So this is a biographical drama about J.R.R. Tolkien, creator of Lord of the Rings, obviously, which spawned one of the biggest selling movie franchises. Well, in fact, two of the biggest selling movie franchises of all time, if we count the Hobbit movies as separate to Lord of the Rings. It's the same thing, isn't it? So in the not too distant past, we've had Goodbye Christopher Robin, and we've had Saving Mr. Banks, and now it's sort of What-Ho Tolkien. And it's the best way of describing it is it's not so much sort of finding Neverland as losing the Shire. So at the beginning, so Nicholas Hoult is the author whose life unfolds in a kind of back and forth montage of flashbacks circling around the trenches of the war in Europe, where he's desperately attempting to find and save an old school friend. And from here we flash back to his childhood, and to his mother falling upon impecunious circumstances, movement from an almost mythical beauty of one area to a kind of hellishly industrial place, Birmingham, as it turns out, as everyone sort of flags up on the thing. And so, you have a journey from rural beauty to darkening horror. Anyway, he's orphaned. He's left to make his way in school among much more privileged kids. But he's lowly, and yet somehow a giant. So he's small and yet a giant. And despite the circumstances by which he arrives here, he amasses around him a circle of friends who, as they progress to Cambridge and to university, they're more than just a circle of friends. They're more of a fellowship. And he meets the love of his life, Edith Bratt, whom he loves despite being told that he shouldn't. He wants to give her a ring. But he's forced to choose between love and education, between desire and duty. But in the battlefields of Europe, he sees a kind of devastation that has a mythical quality. Mythical. It's like Mordor. And throughout, he dreams of creating other worlds using language and life.
It's not a name.
What?
Something else. Celador, it's not a princess's name, it can't be. Celador is a place. It's a place. An ancient place, impossible to reach except by the most treacherous climb. It hangs... No.
No.
It's not a climb. Door. Road. Path. It's path. Path through a dense, dark forest.
Oh, is it now?
And at the heart of Celador, which is actually a shrine, there stands an extraordinary sight.
Is it a proud and opinionated princess?
It is a place which is revered by all who know of it, a sacred place marked at its center by... By trees.
Trees, you say?
Trees.
Trees, and then the trees, they might talk.
And
trees don't talk. What do you think? I don't know. What happens next? I don't know. Have we got any orcs in here? It's pretty orcs at the moment.
Here's the thing. Look, I don't doubt for one moment that with any great work of art, there is inspiration taken from the from the life and first-hand experiences of the writer. I don't doubt that for a moment. And certainly in the case of Tolkien, I'm sure that it's possible to do that kind of mapping of real life onto the fictional worlds. What I do doubt is that those real life events played out in quite so much like a kind of televisual soap opera, in which every emotional or creative nuance is so clearly signposted, as if the script was taken from the pages of a Brodie's Notes primer. And I mean, it is difficult that when you're making a film about the life of a writer whose writing is so revered as inspirational, that the writing of the film itself should be so uninspirational, which is particularly strange since it is written by, there's real talent behind the screen. Stephen Beresford does such a brilliant job, and Pride is the co-writer on it. And it made me think, okay, maybe it's just that the subject matter itself isn't doesn't offer itself for cinema. Part of you has to wonder whether the film exists simply because of the success of Lord of the Rings. I mean, is it is it necessary to tell this story, and is it necessary to tell it as a film? And you do find the film kind of really straining at the leash in terms of trying to work round all the things that you're meant to feel or implied are somehow are contributing to the works that we all now know, whether people know them through reading the books or whether they know them through seeing the films. Because I imagine there's a section of the audience. I mean, I was never a Lord of the Rings fan as a novel, but I thought that the films were absolutely extraordinary. And then I was thinking about, something like Shadowlands, the play and the film, which found such rich material in the life of a writer who, again, fantastical worlds, and yet actually in that the personal story was every bit as moving and actually strangely cinematic, obviously based on a stage play, but actually I thought a stage play rendered in a very cinematic fashion. You'll also know that the Tolkien estate have distanced themselves from the film. They had distanced themselves sight unseen. This is not, and this has to be clarified, it's not that they saw the film and didn't like it. It's that they weren't involved in the film, and they issued a statement just recently saying, we wish to make clear that they do not approve of or authorize or participate in the making of the film and do not endorse its content in any way, which is kind of different to saying, it's a bad film. It's just saying we're not involved in it. And actually, recently there's been an interview with the leading actor saying, well, actually, I think it was a grandson or somebody was peripherally involved on the outside. The point is, in the end, if you're going to take on the story of a writer whose writings have inspired not only so much affection through readers, but have also inspired the Lord of the Rings films, which, whether you're huge fans of them or not, they're one of the biggest. They're up there with Star Wars and Avengers and kind of biggest movie franchises evs. So you have to find something that is inspiring to do with her. And I think the film doesn't. I mean, it might be that the Tolkien estate are just protecting their investment because there are other versions of stories to be told. I think there was recently a sale of some rights to Amazon. I just thought the problem with the film was it did feel chubby-tastic. And it's always going to be a problem when you're telling the life story of somebody who has created a great work of art, and you have to tread carefully around those things. That was why when John Ronson, and I should again credit John Ronson, it was John Ronson who came up with the chubby phrase. And
I think you do need to.
Well,
explain that.
He was talking about, there was a biopic of the life of Karen Carpenter, and not Superstar, which is a really interesting film, but it was a television movie, and there is a moment in it in which she reads a review of a Carpenter's gig, which refers to the drummer as chubby, and she goes, chubby. And this is like the most crass way of somehow reducing everything that you know about what then subsequently happened to Karen Carpenter, which is a really properly, important and tragic story, down to the level of something which is just completely facile. I mean facile, and completely facile. And so that became John Ronson's phrase for the moment in those movies, which completely inadequately it encapsulates the thing that's actually going on in the real life story. I mean, Tolkien it's not a bad movie. It's just a very, very pedestrian movie, which when you're talking about the creator of The Lord of the Rings, does not seem to be enough.